how difficult it is for these people, how challenging it is, and what they must go through, the struggles that these young men and women go through because they are not like the majority, and because a bunch of men 1400 or 2000 years ago decided that this was a bad thing, that this should be forbidden, and now all of these people suffer for their entire lives, the one and only lives that they have, which is so incredibly sad. I wish well for this man. I have another gay friend, actually now I have two gay friends who have left Islam and they're much happier, and I wish for anyone that's gay to understand that this is a man-made way of life, that it's just arbitrary, and there's nothing wrong with being gay. Hey there, it's Abdullah Samir. I want to talk about the struggle of gay Muslims. Sometimes we don't think about what happens to people that are born in a system that teaches them that their innate sexuality is wrong or they're somehow broken, something like that. Now, I do think that what Islam teaches about homosexuality and also what Christianity and Judaism teaches is causes problems for believers of those religions who are homosexual. And so this causes, a lot of anxiety and grief and difficulties in their life because, what they're told is that something's wrong with them, or they can't act on the desires, right? They can't act on this, and there's no really alternative in this case, right? There's no way to change your sexuality. There's no way to fix it, or at least that's what we know. But some of these people think that, okay, maybe I can fix my sexuality. So I was sent this link on Twitter. It's called The Strange Elephant in the Room: Struggles, Passions, and Hopes. So this is written by a gay Muslim. So let's just go to what it says. Ever since I began trying to understand life, one of the crippling realizations about the Muslim communities I reached was this: we tend to bury our problems in a dark hole, dismiss them and hope they will never come back to haunt us, but often they do. We overlook many of our familial, social, and cultural issues until they multiply and are about to explode in our faces. At that point, we are notorious for pointing fingers and crying over spilled milk. Our room is filled with elephants that we barely have an inch to stand, yet we remain oblivious and hope things will get better. So then he goes on to say that he's gay. And he said he's not going to justify homosexuality. He's not going to say that it's allowed in Islam, anything like that. But he is a gay Muslim. So he believes in Islam, he believes Muhammad is the last prophet, and Orthodox Sunni Islam teaches that homosexuality is haram, right? So, as he says, I wholeheartedly believe, in concordance with Islam's teachings, that sodomy is a major sin. I'm against same-sex marriage and intercourse, and I'm not in favor of any progressive movements that attempt to explain Quranic verses about the people of Lot or sodomy from a modernist or postmodernist approach. Okay? So basically, he's saying, I'm not going to justify homosexuality. So one of the things that's highlighted here is that, he knew there was something different from him from a very young age, something he could not explain to others because they would not understand. Finally, it crystallized around puberty. When all the raging hormones started kicking in, those tendencies began obvious. And that's when the real struggle began. The struggle led to an explosion of questions. Why am I different? Why am I not like the rest of my friends or family members? Is this even normal? Am I sick? Not finding the proper answers, I kept putting these questions aside. Maybe it'll go away. Maybe it's just a phase. In my case, it never went away, and it was not a phase. So then he talks about how he realized that this is something that's abhorred in the Muslim community, and he was trying to figure out, how can I deal with this? How can I make sense of this, right? And it says here that he went through a period of self-hate One of the most dangerous pitfalls I have personally experienced was thinking that God hated me. He was mad at me. I must have done something wrong in my life to deserve this punishment. If God does not accept homosexuality, then why am I a homosexual? Whether Muslim or not, people struggling in silence can be more prone to deviating to dangerous paths. So you find many struggling homosexuals also dealing with bullying, drinking problems, substance abuse, domestic violence, poor academic performance, career problems, pornography or sex addictions, STDs, mood disorders like depression and anxiety, and many other issues, right? I had my own share of bullying, academic problems, and mood disorders. Our struggles multiply with time, and many even contemplate suicide. So this is a realization, this is an acknowledgement of the clash between Islamic values, conservative Islamic values, and it could be Christian values too, and being gay, right? And he's saying that this causes so much pain in some people that they even contemplate killing themselves because all around them it's not, it's not accepted, right? And the fellow's name who wrote this is Wahid Jensen, which is probably a pseudonym. And this says here that it's especially true in cases where the individual tries to discuss the issue. Often it's just those desires or thoughts that are tackled, not the actual act, with his parents or family members who are not receptive to those ideas. If not shown sympathy, care, and love, he or she is often shunned, harassed, scorned, and sometimes even tortured. A lot of gay men and women are forced into arranged marriages, taken to local imams to heal them of the calamity and wrath of God, or even killed. Some even take their own lives by themselves. Others live in constant torment, while some flee their homes and families and search for a more welcoming environment. That and many may not have even engaged in any sexual acts whatsoever. And to talk about what he was saying here about people being kidnapped and whatever, sent to imams, there's an example of this guy. His name is Mahad Olad. He's the American who fled gay conversion in Africa. So he was actually tricked into visiting Kenya, going back home for a summer vacation, but his parents had actually an idea in the back of their mind that they were going to fix him. So they were going to send him to this camp where they would actually fix him and somehow make him straight, which, they would beat him up or whatever, right? Who knows, electric shock. I have no idea what they were planning to do to him. But the point is, he was going to be abused and he was going to be stuck in this environment until he was somehow fixed, right? And, there's no evidence that gay conversion therapy actually works. So this was just going to be like a form of torture. So he managed to escape because he called ex-Muslims in North America, and he basically, he managed to get to the U.S. Embassy and escape Kenya. In the middle of the night, without his family catching him. So that's one example. The other example is one of my friends, Sohail Ahmed in UK, who also went through a similar experience, right? And he said, he had a fiery argument with his parents and told them that Islam wasn't probably true. And they went through his internet history and found out he was gay. And his father said he was worse than the dog. Then he made him go for exorcisms to cast out the evil jinns that were possessing him. And for 2 months, I was exorcised every day. We even went to a professional. The man couldn't look at me straight, like he thought I was immediately going to try to shag him if he made eye contact, right? With a hand placed against my sweating head, he started reciting the Quran, humming the cadences in soft, absorbing notes. Something really weird happened as animal, fear-driven part of my mind took over for a moment. There was this overwhelming urge as the scriptural Arabic rolled softly off his tongue to trash and wail about like those people you see in videos, to just lose control. It was this powerful, barely repressible feeling bubbling up from deep within me. It took everything to stay still, and the moment still gives me pause. So after 2 months of this pseudo-spiritual pantomime, I tried to kill myself because I was so effed up and distressing. And so basically he then talks about how he had to leave his family, right? And basically how difficult it was, to live as a Muslim, what his family put him through to try to fix him. So, and then And then this fellow Wahid talks about how the Western alternative is so appealing. This is why I, along with many fellow homosexual Muslims, find the Western alternative very striking. It offers acceptance and understanding, things that we dearly miss in our communities. Even though we may realize deep down that there is something terribly wrong, the fact that there is someone who accepts us and fights for us and not against us is incredibly more appealing. When we try to talk to other Muslims, seemingly pious and God-conscious brothers and sisters about our sexuality, and are shunned by the lack of empathy, respect, and understanding, would you find it surprising that we take comfort in talking to non-religious people about our struggles in hopes to find an open mind and a loving heart? Ironically, the spirit of Islam is all about empathy, tolerance, and understanding, yet the practice of Islam carried out by many Muslims shows the opposite. It just goes to show you that, in this case, like Western liberal tolerance is far superior to this sort of like repressive culture of, homosexuality being wrong and it's corruption and whatever. And it just shows you that there's a natural appeal that when you have good people fighting for your rights, telling you that it's okay to be the way you are, this is naturally something that appeals to people. So he talks about how he finally decided to come out to somebody. And he was 18 and he was a non-religious psychologist and counselor. I went to an appointment with him, tried to beat around the bush, but ultimately came out to him and he was accepting. Later on, I found out that many struggling homosexuals came to him for advice and counseling. Now listen to this. I was hoping that with the aid of therapy, my orientation would change. This is scientifically known as reparative or conversion therapy. While many studies have been conducted on it and some patients have reported success, a great number of psychiatrists and counselors have reported failure and more harm done to the patients than good. Right? And then eventually he says he accepted that this was his sexuality and there was nothing he can do about it, right? And then, he was doing a lot of research and trying to find a way to come to terms with this because he had cognitive dissonance, right? And then he said he found something that, made him cry and he was so happy, which is that homosexuality is a disorder in one's fitra, human nature and disposition. Treatment of such a disorder involves therapy, familial and social support, personal discipline, and a whole lot of other things. However, this therapy, which is tailored on a case-by-case basis, may or may not work. The mode of therapy is different between individuals, just like every case of homosexuality is different between people. Mind you, the term therapy here is used loosely to mean dealing with the issue from different aspects rather than reverting one's sexual orientation. So he's already saying that, it's not successful usually, this conversion therapy. And I have a feeling that the ones that are successful are basically gays who are just like pretending to be straight. They're just suppressing the desire and just, I'm just going to get married to a woman. And I have another story of that, of another young man who ruined his life by getting married to a woman because he was doing this to try to fix himself, but instead he ended up ruining his own life and her life, right? So then this guy tries to justify why he's homosexual or why people are homosexual. He says, we can pinpoint certain events, child abuse, sexual, physical or emotional abuse, or living in a dysfunctional family. And he said, I for one had my own share of psychological and sexual abuse as a child and witnessed intense domestic violence. So he thinks that this is the reason he is gay. Now, I don't believe there's any such evidence that if that was the case, then your sexuality can change. But even if it was, it doesn't change the fact that he's stuck with his sexuality. And there's nothing he can do about it, right? It doesn't really matter how he ended up like that. And then he talks about, people being desensitized to issues regarding sexuality and gender roles. The perception of masculinity and femininity is quite erroneous. And then again, he's trying to justify by saying that either the dad was missing or the mom. I mean, come on, like that's going to change your sexuality. And then he talked about how there are people that have no such issues in their childhood yet are still homosexual. Interesting. Maybe that should give him some food for thought, right? And then, I mean, this is like getting quite ridiculous now. Then he says, we are bombarded on a daily basis with sexually explicit material from billboards, magazines, and so on. Again, this is just like, this is just grasping for straws now, like, talking about, like, how would this change your sexuality? It doesn't make any sense. But he's trying to find a way to make sense of how he ended up this way. He can't accept that he was born this way because that conflicts with the fact that it's haram, right, to do these things, to be involved in any sort of homosexual activities. So he has to come up with a reason why he's homosexual. Otherwise, he's stuck, right? Like if he can't come up with a way then to justify this, then it means that Allah, is either evil because he gave him a situation that he's going to be punished and he's going to be stuck with, he's going to be tortured and struggle with, or something happened to him that's not Allah's fault, which is what he's trying to say, right? And then he's saying, this is very interesting. When I see married women and men sharing affection, enjoying companionship, and raising children, it hurts a lot, right? Because it's a painful realization that this is something I can never attain. Because of my struggle in life, the idea of marrying someone from the opposite sex is not practical at all, or even fair for me or my spouse, right? Many shuyukh, which is scholars, advise homosexuals to get married for the tendencies to dissolve. While this may work with a handful of people, a large number of us does not find it physically or mentally plausible. Many of the things other people, including the shuyukh themselves, take for granted, like relationships, marriage, and having children, are the exact things we struggle with day in and day out, right? So now he's saying his entire life is going to be some internal jihad or struggle against this, right? While it may seem unfair and even preposterous to some people to keep struggling and not fulfill their desires, this is where the beauty lies, he says, right? We are not held accountable for thoughts, feelings, and desires and tendencies as long as we do not act upon them, right? So he's saying that there's nothing wrong with being homosexual as long as you're celibate, right? Which is the Islamic position. Homosexuals are not in any way going to go to hell unless they engage in homosexual activities, right? Premarital, and which is the same as any other premarital sex is haram, right? And then he talks about the blessings and the rewards of the struggle, and to deny himself, and to never have a loving relationship with another man, and so on and so forth. And that's basically, this is what I wanted to share, that how difficult it is for these people, how challenging it is, and what they must go through, the struggles that these young men and women go through because they are not like the majority, and because a bunch of men 1400 or 2000 years ago decided that this was a bad thing, that this should be forbidden, and now all of these people suffer for their entire lives, the one and only lives that they have, which is so incredibly sad. I wish well for this man. I have another gay friend, actually now I have two gay friends who have left Islam and they're much happier, and I wish for anyone that's gay to understand that this is a man-made way of life, that it's just arbitrary, and there's nothing wrong with being gay. Thanks for watching. Take care and bye.